Welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab, sponsored by CPA Practice Advisor, with your hosts, Randy Johnston and Brian Tankersley.
Welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab. I get to have a live recording with you with my co-host, Brian Tankersley. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. As you might be able to tell, we're coming to you from Scaling New Heights in Orlando at the World Marriott Center. Now, Joe is going to run his program here at this location through 2029. We got to see a lot of our colleagues and friends that we've known for years here, Brian.
Yeah, it's truly been Old Home Week. I mean, we saw, one guy that you and I saw, Doug Laban, has, worked for Xero, worked for Sage, and we've probably known him 15 years anyway.
Yeah, and he has actually, I think, created a very interesting new product for doing SaaS inventories. And, that is something that we put in our presentations for the last 3 to 4 years, maybe a little longer, because we think people are squandering a lot of money by oversubscribing or underutilizing SaaS software. And it's really hard to know what you got subscribing, even in personal, if you think about your Netflix and Disney and Amazon and all those accounts you have for video streaming, all of a sudden, what am I spending the money on? And, $5 here, $10 there, pretty soon you have some serious money.
Yeah, I was telling Doug, I don't know that I want his product to look at my AI spend right now because it would probably frighten me. But cool. Well, we actually went through and shot video of the entire trade show floor, all 140 booths. We interviewed probably 10 or 15 people.
Yep.
And so that'll be coming out on YouTube. You got to give me a little bit to do that, because what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go through and actually put chapters in it whenever we have interviews. And so you'll be able to see all the products that are in there. And there were some interesting ones, the Digits AI-based ledger,
The puzzle
AI-based ledger.
Yeah.
Now they're not ready for your construction clients yet. They don't have job costing, they don't have inventory, but it's interesting times.
But speaking of inventory, we saw our friend Pete Postos, who was
We did at Settle.
That settled the inventory company. And then my guess is there were probably 6 products that did inventory.
Oh, at least 6. Yeah, it was good. And the interesting part here is how the I guess kind of the mood on the street. I mean, it really struck me that there are a lot of people that are just done with Intuit, given that they're killing off desktop.
Yeah.
And I'm not stating any opinion one way or the other. I'm just stating the fact of what the other human beings told me.
Yeah, and in this case, 2.5 million copies of desktop still in use.
Yeah.
And those users are going to go somewhere. So
and these advisors are hot.
Yeah.
I mean, they are hot. And so that's part of why there's so many inventory tools here, because the inventory in QBO is not quite up to the level of QuickBooks Desktop. And so the folks, if they go to QBO, they're going to have some kind of inventory tool.
Yeah. So friends, here's maybe a couple of insights, and Brian, I'd like you to add the color too.
Yeah.
But the tone of the conference, besides the people being hot about Intuit, generally upbeat. Both the AICPA Engage conference this year and Scaling New Heights, there's a lot of optimism about what is to come. The vendors' presence in both of those shows were good. We've got podcasts in both situations. But just walking the show floor, talking to the vendors, most of them were quite excited about their new products. The attendees are quite excited about the opportunity with their clients downstream. So that is actually kind of an upbeat message that I didn't expect.
Yeah. Well, I will say that the presence of PE here, I have not seen any PE here. Okay. So this is quite different than the AICPA show where there were all these PE funds and all these PE people just swirling around. I mean, you could almost, at one of the hacker cons, they have a game they play called Spot the Fed. We actually play a game, Randy and I, when we walk these shows, we call it Spot the PE, and it's always the person in the blue Navy blazer, okay? And
hey, don't give our secrets out.
That's right. They're going to now start wearing something different. They'll wear a tweed jacket or something. I don't know, but it's it's interesting how the PE was very present in big firm America, and then when we come back to small firm bookkeeping firm, CAS, there's really not as much PE here. Although the vendors owned by PE were here, but it still didn't have the same kind of vibe.
It did not. And, I was reflecting on that because I actually had not observed that. Brian and I have been here in Orlando since Saturday, so the show runs Saturday to Wednesday.
And we're recording it late Tuesday afternoon.
So we're not quite complete on the show, but now that you've said that, I think I only saw one firm that was PE backed.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be thorough about that, but I believe that might be the only one. There might have been one more. It wasn't quite clear. So two, whereas in Vegas, dozens.
Easily dozens. I mean, look, if the PE people had been sharks, we would have been in the middle of a remake of Jaws. I mean, they were just everywhere.
Well, it was the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, it was the 50th anniversary.
What more could you say? But you are right. They were actually, there was blood in the water, and they were after it, is the way I saw it. And
it was a good day to be just an observer.
Yes, it really was. Now, in terms of just sessions, we have been through all but one of the keynotes here for Scaling New Heights. And, we just actually watched a guest from Amsterdam, I believe he was.
Yeah, it was David Allen that wrote the famous book, Getting Things Done. He's 80, believe it or not.
And he had a wonderful methodology for being effective, and I thought that was good. But the basic keynotes, large attendance, reported attendance here is about 1,800 under the roof, as it was told to us. And the room here is big. We could almost turn the video around as we finish up and you can see it. But I don't think that's material. The quality of the attendees here was actually a notch above what I had seen in the past.
And they were really hungry for knowledge, too.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to insult the prior attendees, but these people were serious, is probably the way I would say it. They're not here for a good time. They're here to learn and have a good time. But, I mean, sometimes people go to conferences just to have a good time.
Yeah, this was not a Tony Robbins conference where, you're figuring out your personal power. This is one where people are here to accomplish real business objectives for their small CAS practices.
And one of the other things that I thought was interesting this time was many of the main stage guests were practitioners that had their own client accounting services practices, and they were telling their stories. That was interesting. And there was a lot of personal stories shared, and Brian and I reflected on, how that had an impact in this group. But they are a tightly knit group in terms of their relationships and the way they learn from each other. Now,
the interesting part is how willing they are to help each other. Because I know I had a question about Google Workspace and Google Script in my session on automation, and I didn't know the answer. And one guy spoke up and said, "Hey, I can help you with that."
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see the collegiality here, because it's, none of us get through this world alone. It's nice to see people trying to help each other.
Yeah, and this was really people helping people. And, I know your sessions were appreciated. Mine were, but many.
You are a rock star. I mean, I bet some of the people face Hutchinson 5 times a day to pray.
Well, I hope not. I'd rather have a completely different orientation. But what I do know is the practicality. And that's what we try to do here in the Accounting Technology Lab too. We try to be pretty straightforward and practical. We may not get all the balls of strike called exactly right, but we try to always have the ones that are in the strike zone called, and the ones that are clear balls, but the ones that are close, we'll miss a few. Sometimes we get fooled. But what we also learned is we probably have another dozen products or more that we need to dig into for you. And we will try to analyze those fairly so that that's the real deal.
And we're going to try to get to the fit of it. And again, the thing to understand here is just like there is somebody for everybody in the dating world, there is a right practitioner for certain applications, okay? And what I hope you get from this, because we try to go a little bit deeper, what I hope you get is a sense for where the right fit is for these things.
And what was fascinating as we were doing just a few of the interviews, particularly the CEO of Mango, who said, look, lots of people buy the wrong size practice management, sometimes too small, sometimes too large, and here's where we fit. And many of the vendors actually would respond to the question, here's what we do, here's where we fit, and here's what we don't do. And that was also pretty fascinating because you don't see that type of honesty as often, I don't believe.
Well, but it's so much more critical for those new companies, because if they get on with the wrong people and people talk trash about them, they're dead in the water.
Yeah.
Because those early adopters are so hard to get. But it's refreshing because, again, there is a right product for everybody, and there's an almost right product for everybody, and you just have to do the homework. How many practice management tools are you tracking right now?
Well, it's now up to 61 practice management products
And
91
portals?
91 portals.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to have to possibly adjust the numbers once we get done analyzing what happened to us at Engage and here at Scaling New Heights. So, it's hard for you to be able to filter all of those products appropriately.
Well,
Now,
I can say categorically that in the 20 years I've been going to big conferences out of my 32-year career, or 33-year career now, this is there's probably more new innovation at this time in the accounting firm space than I've seen at just about any time in that 20-year period.
yeah, that's very fascinating. But I do want to revisit one topic of importance to me. Some of the legacy vendors that have had good products have also upgraded them notably. Xero being one of those, Zoho being one of those. And they understand that they've got to stay up and compete also. So just because there's new shiny lights doesn't mean that some of the traditional lights aren't going to be accepted.
Completely agreed.
And we've been noticing that the attendees here are telling us they're taking their QuickBooks accounts and they're moving them to Xero. They're taking their QuickBooks accounts and moving them to Zoho.
But you remember though when Microsoft Office accounting came in from like 2005 to 2009, and then Xero came in about 2010-ish. You remember how Intuit really brought their A game then? That's the thing I'm so excited about, is this competition is really making everybody better, and it's making everybody really decide who they are and who they aren't. And I think that's part of why people will tell us what they do and who they don't fit for.
And it is clear that the CEOs are passionate about solving a problem, in which the product development, product managers behind it, all that's coming out. Well, we wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of the conference while we were here. Again, you'll see the walkthrough from the floor, but we'll have another episode for you on the AI impact here at Scaling New Heights. I think that's big enough to cover it separately. So for the moment, any closing thoughts, Brian, on just the overall event?
Woodard organization puts on a great conference. And again, this is probably, in my mind, probably the best organization for CAS support in the country. Again, it's, AICPA has their program that fits well with big firms. For small firms, this is the game.
This is the game. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you with us in the Accounting Technology Lab. We'll see you again in a future episode. All the best. Good day.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We'll be back next Saturday with a new episode of the Technology Lab from CPA Practice Advisor. Have a great week.